He says, that is why I have alerted my brothers that we cannot pray the prayer of the Prophet of Allah unless we know how it is in details, and we know the obligations in it, we know the etiquettes, and we know the du'as and the adhkar, and then we could be keen as well and eager to implement that practically, not just to read it, so that our prayer would forbid us from doing fahsha and munkar, evil, and also to get the prayer giving us the reward which we've been promised. Now, because of that knowledge, is not going to be easy for normal laymen, normal people, even some of the scholars have tied themselves to a particular madhab, school of thought. That is why it was difficult for them to know the prayer of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For verily some of the madhahab, they do have sunan that other madhahab they don't. And that is why the Shaykh Al-Albaani says that I have collected my effort to do this book. In these school of thoughts, we're going to be seeing in a minute lots of things. He says, for verily, there are some ahadith in school of thoughts like the Hanafi, the Madhab al-Shafi'i, Imam al-Malik, Imam Ahmad. There are some things in those books which is not authentic. And I'm going to give you an example. Here Abu al-Hasanat al-Laknawi, Rahimahullah, in his book, النافع الكبير لمن يطالع الجامع الصغير, he says, for verily, when you look at some of the books of the fuqaha, you'll find some ahadith which is not authentic, but to say fabricated. And Al-Imam Al-Albaani, he says, from these ahadith which is fabricated, that so many people had said it because they are documented in those fiqh books. And that is, من قضى صلوات من الفرائض في آخر جمعة من رمضان. He who does compensate for missed prayers in his life, because he missed them. In the last Jumu'ah of Ramadan, it will compensate for every salah he had left, did not pray, until 70 years. MashaAllah. This hadith what? Batil, fabricated. So the scholars said that this hadith is fabricated. And the scholars of the fiqh, they have put in their books, because they're not muhaddithin, they are not specialty, their specialty is not hadith, and that's why you find in their books some of those ahadith which is absolutely nothing to do with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And that is why we find some of the great scholar books of fiqh have been checked by the muhaddithun, and we have plenty of examples. Shaykh Al-Albaani gives us some there. For verily, you find, for example, العناية بمعرفة أحاديث الهداية والطرق والوسائل في تخريج أحاديث خلاصة الدلائل. All of these two books for the Shaykh Abdul Qadir Muhammad al-Qarshi al-Hanafi, نصب الراية في الأحاديث, that is لأحاديث الهداية للزيعلي رحمة الله عليه, and also the اختصار, the concise of it, which is الدراية للإمام ابن حجر العسقلاني, and also he has تلخيص الحبير also ابن حجر العسقلاني. All of those for fiqh book. They have checked fiqh book. So that is why the Shaykh Al-Albaani had decided to make this book. And this book, even though it looks small, wallahi, he had to swim in oceans and seas and rivers in order to get you that book. He has to swim in the oceans of the fiqh books, in the ocean of the hadith books, in the ocean of tafsir books. It's not a simple book like this. It's not like, for example, a person goes into his room and starts making a fairy tale. No, that's something else. This is a book which is like the cream of the crop, the juice of all the juices. And that is why it's a great book, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given that book the go-ahead to spread amongst the people, and God knows how many languages it's been translated to. How many languages it's been translated to. Right. Now he says, Rahimahullah, my reason why I have made this book. Is that correct there? Yes. Right, he says, because of this following reason. Number one, I did not find a book which talks about the prayer. At this time, there was no book that would collect all of that in one book, which is one subject, which is the prayer. You find it, for example, scattered in the book, chapter of the prayer. But itself, a book about the prayer, there wasn't. So that is the book is so important in the library. And then he says that a book which is mustaw'id, that is, will take all the things in one, not to leave anything. And also easy going, so that people understand it. Because if you're going to find a book about the prayer, like a volume, people will say, it's too much for me to learn the prayer, a big volume. I want a small book, I want a small sandwich. I don't want a big meal. Big meal is, you ought to, so you don't have time. So that is why he made it easy. And also he says, I have made it a condition upon myself that I will only narrate the ahadith which is authentic, which is the one that would fit the criterion of authenticity. And I have left all these ahadith which has a person he is not trustworthy, or a person who's a liar, or a person who's got no memory sound, or a person who's got something that would make this hadith unauthentic. I have left that because I believe that in the hadith of the sahih authentic is sufficient and is enough for us. And but regarding the hadith of da'if, hadith of da'if means unauthentic. The scholars regarding the hadith of da'if are of two categories. Category number one, that some scholars they say it is allowed to implement hadith da'if in fada'il al-a'mal, in the excellencies of the deeds, not in the deeds itself, with conditions. I'm going to mention them in a minute, inshallah. And there is other scholars who said, no, we don't implement the hadith al-da'if at all. Why? Because number one, hadith al-da'if means one gesture. You are not sure. Because it's not from the Prophet of Allah, you're not sure. Number two, and that is, in the sahih, is sufficient. We don't need the da'if. So why do we have to go to the da'if when we have enough sahih in front of us? Because of those two reasons, that category of scholars, they said, we're going to put the hadith al-da'if away. Let's talk about the scholars who said we could implement the hadith al-da'if with the following condition. Let's see the conditions, and you will see how difficult to implement the conditions, and that is why we resort to the second opinion, that you should not look at the hadith al-da'if except just to know it is da'if. The conditions are, number one, that this hadith al-da'if has to be in rewards of a deed, not to establish the deed. So it's not to establish hukm, not fil ahkam, but fil fada'il. Fada'il means the excellencies. So if I want, for example, to establish that the prayer is compulsory, I don't use hadith da'if. If I want to establish zakah is compulsory, I don't use hadith da'if. But in the rewards of a prayer, in the rewards of the zakah, I could use hadith da'if. The first condition. Second condition, that this hadith da'if should not be very da'if, very weak. That means if in it there is a narrator who is a narrator who is not trustworthy, you should not say that hadith. Number three, that when the person says that hadith, he should say ruwiya, qila, not to say qala. What is the difference between ruwiya and qila and qala? That is, when you say ruwiya, means that it's been said. It gives a hint to the listener, it is not sahih. And if you said qala, that is he said, that means it gives a hint which is sahih. So if you are using a hadith sahih, you should never use qila, which is the word that will give you a hint is a da'if and authentic. And in the unauthentic, you should not use the word qala, he said, haddathana, because it will give a hint that it is sahih. And the fourth condition, and those conditions by the way from the scholars, fourth condition of Shaykh Al-Albaani said, well, this is for the learned people will say that, but we have to say to the general people that this hadith is da'if. Because not everybody knows if I said qila or ruya, they will know da'if. I have to tell them it is da'if. Also, that if you want to implement it, it's not to be famous. This hadith da'if became so famous, people think it is what? Authentic. And number 6, and the last condition, is that it should not ever have the aqidah or the belief that the Prophet of Allah ﷺ had said it. So if you know that these conditions are very hard to implement, we resort to that opinion of the scholars where they say we have sufficient hadith sahih and we do not want to make the hadith da'if. That's the cream of the crop of what the Shaykh Al-Albaani wanted to say regarding why he made the book, rahmatullahi alayh. He said, I have made the book into two categories. Category number 1, which is to make the hadith and those which are to do with the prayer. And category number 2 is to explain where is this hadith coming from and what is the hadith is da'if or not da'if and all of that. And this category number 2 is not in our book. It is in the asl. Category number 1, we've had it, we've got it, and we have very summarized of the category number 2. So we don't have really detailed, of the hadith. You want to go to the asl. Asl, it hasn't been translated as far as I know. It is only this book or the concise, which is the little one. But the big one, I didn't see any translation of it, because if you read it, it's so much to do with hadith knowledge. And not everybody would understand hadith knowledge in Arabic to understand it in English. That is why it will not make a big an effort or a big advantage if you translate it into English. I would say learn Arabic better. He named it, he said, صفة الصلاة, صفة صلاة النبي, the description of the prayer of the Prophet of Allah, من التكبير, from takbir, إلى التسليم, to salutation, كأنك تراها, just like you are seeing it. Then he says, منهج الكتاب, what is the methodology of the book? You following me?
Yeah.
I am saving you from reading because I want to do a lot tonight, inshallah. Right. Manhaji fil kitab. What is my manhaj? What is the route that I have taken? The route that is, for verily, the muhaddith is much more, you could say, to the point than the faqih. And the muhaddith is basically the one who would mention the hadith that you could take out the rule from it. So, all the scholars, they have agreed from the muhaddithin that the hadith muhaddithin is more to the correct than the ones of the faqih. So he says, أهل الحديث هم أهل النبي وإن لم يصحبوا نفسه أنفاسه صحبوا. This is the poetry from Al-Hasan Muhammad Al-Nasawi, as has been narrated by Al-Hafidh Diyad Al-Maqdisi in his book فضل الحديث وأهله. He said, أهل الحديث, the people of the hadith, the scholars of the hadith, they are the family of the Prophet. Even though they did not accompany the self of Muhammad, they have accompanied his breath, his hadith. So, he said that this book, it will be a collection of what is being spread into the books of the fiqh and the books of the hadith, regardless of their school of thought, and which goes to the haqq, insha'Allah, as much as I can. And he says, and I know that there will be lots of people who will be dissatisfied, especially the madhabiyun, the ones who call themselves Hanafis or Shafi'is. They will not really be happy with such a thing, but I will only be concerned of pleasing Allah. Man arda an-nas bi sakhatillah. Prophet ﷺ said, he who had pleased the people on the expense of making Allah angry, وَكَلَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَّا النَّاسِ. Allah will put him to the people. Go and search your reward from the people. But he who does please Allah on the expense of making the people angry, Allah will help him. Allah will protect him. So, he says, for verily, that I sought the madhab of the four madhab. I am a Hanafi, he says. I am a Shafi'i. I am a Maliki. I am Hanbali. All these scholars, because these scholars, they never say be Shafi'i, be Hanbali, but be and take from what we have taken, and that is the Quran wa Sunnah ala manhaj salaf al-ummah. Then he goes to the main thing, which is, this is the book is all about. The sayings of the Imams, and he means the Imams here, the four famous Imams. But there are more than these Imams. And these Imam Abu Hanifa, in that order, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad. What did they say? So he says, I want to bring these sayings of these Imams. It could be, insha'Allah, a reminder for those who are blind followers. Blind followers to scholars without knowing their proofs. If you are a layman, you can be a blind follower, no problem. But you should not have ta'assub. What is ta'assub? Ta'assub is that to say that my Imam is infallible. Some of the layman, he doesn't know what is hadith sahih, what is hadith da'if, what is weak and one weak and authentic. And we're not going to tell him, please brother, you can't be Muslim until you go and graduate from the university. You can't say that to them. But we say to that person who doesn't know anything, okay, you could be a blind follower, because you know that this Imam is a great Imam, but you cannot have what? Ta'assub. Ta'assub is that I will not leave this Imam to another Imam. Why is he infallible? Is he a prophet? Did Allah say, "O people, follow Abu Hanifa"? Did Abu Hanifa himself say, "O people, follow me"? Let's see what did they say. Rahmatullahi ala Abi Hanifa wa ala baqiyat al-a'imma. Al-Imam Abu Hanifa is number one. So, Abu Hanifa, Al-Nu'man ibn Thabit, Rahimahullāh, he is the one who had narrated more than any other scholars many opinions based upon qiyas. What is qiyas? Qiyas means deduction by analogy. What does that word mean? If he wants to give a rule or a verdict regarding a particular matter, all Imams would look for Quran and Sunnah or sayings of the companions. But because Imam Abu Hanifa, he was the first Imam, and the knowledge of Hadith was not spreading around a lot, so the goods of Hadith was very few. So he did not have a lot of proofs from the Quran or the Sunnah. That is why he had to use his analogy, deduction, and he was the master of it. Even Imam Al-Shafi'i, who came well after the Imam Abu Hanifa, he said, نحن عيال في الفقه على أبي حنيفة. We are kids in fiqh compared with Imam Abu Hanifa. Kids. You know, kids. So the scholar Imam Shaykh were kids. Because Imam Abu Hanifa, he is a scholar in terms of the fiqh. He used to deduct rules, and he had no Quran or Sunnah, but he has to look at the similarities and nadha'ir, and then he will derive a rule. But because of that, later on when the ahadith came, so many of his deduced analogy, hukum, were wrong. Do you understand me? That's why he had lots of wrongs. Why? Because he did not have the hadith which had came to the hands of Imam Malik or Imam Shafi'i after him or Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal after him. You know Imam al-Bukhari? Imam al-Bukhari came well after those A'immah. He was a student of Imam Ahmad. So Imam Shafi'i did not see Imam Bukhari. Okay? And Imam as well, Abu Hanifa did not say Imam Bukhari. Imam Ahmad saw Imam Bukhari, but he was his teacher. So Imam al-Bukhari, when he made Sahih al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, who's the student of Imam Bukhari, these two scholars, they have gathered ahadith where the other scholars before them did not see these ahadith. So you expect them to make wrong verdicts. Why? Because they did not have the same proofs that these scholars who came after them. Do you understand me? So that is why Imam Abu Hanifa, he was a mujtahid. He was striving to arrive to the right conclusion. So if he made a mistake, he should know for the following. Can I have this phone, please? Or the window is open. So because if it's too much heat, people will sleep. Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, you have to understand why he made those mistakes. And one of them, which is drinking wine, is for Abu Hanifa halal as long as it does not get you drunk, except for the wine of the grapes. The wine of the grapes is for him, whether you drink a bit or a lot is haram. But if you drink wine from other than that, the wine of the barley, which is the normal beer, or the wine of maybe the kufa, which is from the dates, okay, it's for him is halal. He would say, Abu Hanifa, he's he's an evildoer. No, he's not. He's a mujtahid, and he will be rewarded. Or maybe a drunken person says, Alhamdulillah, Abu Hanifa made it halal, I'm going to go with some wine from the shop, as long as it's not from the wine of the grapes. I will just have some wine from have some beer, you know. I'm not going to get drunk, have a glass or two. Okay. Well, if Abu Hanifa was alive, he would say, A'udhu billah, what I've said. My hadith, my opinion regarding that issue is wrong. When he was asked, the end of his life, why do you make this wine to be halal? He said, do you want me to make the companions corrupted? Because it reached him that some of the companions in Iraq, in Kufa, used to drink that wine. So if he made it haram, he's making the companions to be fasiqun, corrupted, evildoers. That's why. So the Prophet of Allah, he said, إِذَا اجْتَهَدَ الْحَاكِمُ فَأَصَابَ فَلَهُ أَجْرًا فَإِنْ أَخْطَأَ فَلَهُ أَجْرٌ. If the person who is a knowledgeable person, a scholar, had made a verdict, ijtihad, and he was correct, he will have what? 2 rewards. And if he's wrong, he will have what? He's not going to be sinned. So he's fluctuating between 2 rewards and 1 reward. Whereas the ignorant man is fluctuating between a sin and many sins. The scholar is between 2 rewards and 1 reward. But if the ignorant man makes a fatwa, it's either 1 sin or too many sins. Be careful, like they make fatwa without knowledge. These people, that's what they thought is correct. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. Let's see what they have said. And please, for those who are on the other side, who disrespect Imam Abu Hanifa, you're wrong, akhi. Abu Hanifa is on top of our head. Wallahi, we can't reach to our deen without Abu Hanifa and the other scholars. But they are not infallible. And if Abu Hanifa was correct, if it was right, if it was alive, he will choose the hadith which is in front of him. And that is why one of the shuyukh, he came to give a lecture in a place where most of the ones who are sitting down are Hanafis. So he started giving a talk, and the people that were standing liked it. So one of those who did not like that sheikh, and he wanted the people to have the same thing, they don't like him. So as soon as he proves to the people that he's not on the same madhab of theirs, the people will dislike him. So he asked him in front of everybody, Shaykh, can I ask you, this fatwa that you're giving, which madhab is it? So Shaykh, he knew his clever. He said, Ana ala madhabi Abi Hanifa. I am on the madhab of Abu Hanifa, even though none of his fatwa is the same fatwa as Abu Hanifa. But because he knows, Abu Hanifa had said, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيثُ فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. The first saying, please translate.
When a hadith is found to be sahih, then that is my madhab.
Did he lie, the scholar? He did not lie. He said, أنا على مذهب أبي حنيفة. I am on the madhab of Abu Hanifa. So when the scholar had said something on a hadith which is sahih, he knows Abu Hanifa, he was alive, he would have taken that hadith which is sahih, authentic. So I am on the madhab of Abu Hanifa, and everybody was championing that. Jazakallahu khayran. Hanafi you are as well. أنا على مذهب أبي حنيفة. And that guy, he had failed his mission to make the people not to pay attention to him. Second saying, please.
It is not permitted for anyone to accept our views if they do not know from where we got them.
Allahu Akbar. You're not allowed to take anything that I say unless you know where I took it from, how, which hadith, which ayah, which saying of the companions. You can't be just blind follower. Allahu Akbar. And that is from the kamal al-taqwa. إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث فَهُوَ مَذْهَبِي. Listen to what Ibn Abdeen had narrated for us. From from one of the Shaykh Ibn Humam, he says, إِذَا صَحَّ الْحَدِيث. If the hadith was authentic and it was contradicting our school of thought, our madhab, then we'll take the hadith and implement it. And this is the madhab of our Shaykh. Look at that. And this is the madhab of our Shaykh. And that person who's Hanafi, when he says according to the hadith which is opposing his madhab, he does not go outside being Hanafi. So he's still Hanafi. So even he contradicted his Shaykh Hanifa, Abu Hanifa, still Hanafi. Why? Because Abu Hanifa, he said, if the hadith is authentic, then this is my madhab. Look at that. This is taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Coming back. And he says in another narration,
in one narration, it is prohibited for someone who does not know my evidence to give verdicts on the basis of my words.
Allah, subhanallah. So, this is now, so let's just now talk about something. That these people, when they know that the saying of their Imam Abu Hanifa contradicts the hadith, what should they say? Allahu Musta'an. So Abu Hanifa, when he said regarding the wine out of the dates, why doesn't the Hanafi confess? I should not be muta'assib, fanatic. I should say Abu Hanifa was wrong. but he's got ajr. And this wine is to be haram. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, مَا أَسْكَرَ كَثِيرُهُ فَقَلِيلُهُ حَرَامٌ. What too much of it makes you drunk, then little bit of it is haram. So if you drank 2 bottles of any drink and made you drunk, let's say, then 1 drop of that is what? Haram. Regardless, whether it's made of dates, made of barley, made of anything. If it makes you drunk, then that gives you a hint to what to do regarding some of those medicines. And some of them, they contain what? Alcohol. Bismillah. If that medicine, especially the coughing medicine, it's got alcohol, look for an alternative. If there is no alternative, and there is, if there isn't, then if that medicine says, if you drink too much of it, it makes you drowsy, then avoid it. Because the alcohol percentage in it is high. But some of the medicines, the percentage of the alcohol is almost like free. I'll tell you something that you know it in this country. If it is less than 0.05, again, 0.05. Less than that, this is considered alcohol free. That percentage, which is 0.05, you find it even in orange juice. Okay? So less than that is alcohol free. Above that is not alcohol free. One day, about more than 20 years ago, when I came to this country, I came before that, but I came on that, and I was drinking from Asda, a drink which I used to find it in the soft drink section. It's called ginger beer. You heard about that? I like the taste of it. So I used to get a bottle, Asda bottle, take it home, and I drink it, fizzy drink, mashallah. I know it's called ginger beer, but it's not beer, it's ginger. Then while I was doing nothing, basically, I started to read. Like, I don't like to read on the ingredients like these people eat, 5, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, it gives you a headache. I'm looking at the ingredients, and then it says there at the back, and I used to read because I was a bit younger. Now I can't read, I need glasses. It says there it contains less 0.05, less than 0.05 ABV. I don't know, what is ABV? I phoned, rang after. Customer service. The lady, she answers. She says, I bought some drink from the soft drink, it's called ginger beer. Got ABV. What is ABV? She says, okay, can I put you on hold? You don't mind? I don't mind. After 1 minute passed, she said, alcohol bar something volume. I said, what? Alcohol? She said, yeah, but this is alcohol free, but yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm a Muslim. You should put me alcohol. I can't remember, a week or 2 weeks. This is their brand, Asda ginger beer, the cheapest one. So I went there and I was looking at the soft drink, and it says alcohol without volume. From one phone call. How many bottles they have changed? God knows, millions. They're scared. They put alcohol, but I can't remember the B was for, volume. So, is it halal or not halal? It is halal. Because less than 0.05, and that's why they put it in the soft drink section, not the alcohol section. Coming back, nothing to do with our prayer, but we have to give these things for you as well. Imam Abu Hanifa Rahimahullāh, he says in another narration, I am a human being, bashar. We say the saying today, and we change it the following day. In another narration he says, woe to you, Yaqub. Yaqub is premier students, is kunya Abu Yusuf. Don't write everything that you hear from me, for verily I say something today, and I leave it tomorrow. And I say something tomorrow, and I leave it the day after. I keep changing my mind. So why do you write everything that I say? He's telling his premier student, Abu Yusuf, his name is Yaqub. Right, so Imam Abu Hanifa, Rahimahullah, if he were to live today, he would have changed his opinion regarding lots of issues. And he would have just said, you could wipe over the sock. You know that the Hanafis, they will not wipe over the sock. They will wipe over the what? Khuf, which is called leather socks. But if he had to live, he would have just said, yes, hadith al-Mughira ibn Shu'bah and the hadith of so and so. All of them said the Prophet of Allah, he had masaha ala al-jawrabayni wal-na'layn. He had wiped off over the socks, and that is the wool socks and the leather socks. Let's go to Imam Malik. Now, Imam Malik, fadl. Imam Malik said, number one,
truly I am only a mortal. I make mistakes sometimes and I am correct sometimes. Therefore, look into my opinions. All that agrees with the book and the sunnah, accept it. And all that does not agree with the book and the sunnah, ignore it.
Right. Second saying,
everyone after the Prophet ﷺ will have his sayings accepted and rejected. Not so the Prophet ﷺ.
This saying was made famous from Imam Malik, but he took it from Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. This is a famous saying. And Abdullah ibn Abbas, when he said it, his student Mujahid, he took it from him. So from them also Imam Ahmad, he took it from him, but it was famous from Imam Malik. He said, كُلٌّ يُؤْخَذُ مِنْ قَوْلِهِ وَيُرَدْ إِلَّا صَاحِبُ هَذَا الْقَبْرِ. Every person you could take from his sayings and leave some of his sayings, except the one who's where? In that grave. Because he was in Medina, next to the grave of the Prophet, except with the one who's in the grave, who is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Look at Imam Malik, how he would leave his opinion if he hears there's a hadith on the Prophet of Allah. Ibn Wahb, he said, I've heard Malik was asked about running the little finger, okay, between the toes of the feet in the wudu. So he said, Imam Malik, for verily, people should not do it. So he said, I left him until the people were getting less and less. I mean, the ones who were listening to him, they just left. And when I saw him on his own, I said to him, for verily, I've heard a sunnah regarding this. He said, what is it? So I said, حدثنا الليث بن سعد. الليث بن سعد narrated to us. وابن لهيعة, and also ابن لهيعة. وعمر بن الحارث عن يزيد عن عمرو المعافري عن أبي عبد الرحمن الحبلي قال عن المستورد بن شداد القرشي. He said narration. Then he said, قال رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يدلك بالخنصر ما بين أصابع رجليه. He used to make with his little finger, runs between the toes of his feet. So he said, this hadith is Hasan. Hadith is authentic. He's running through the narrators. Hadith is Hasan. وَمَا سَمِعْتُ بِهِ قَطْ إِلَّا السَّاعَةِ. I never heard this hadith except just now. For verily, Ibn Wahb, he says, I've heard Imam Malik being asked the same question. Should the people, is it from the Sunnah, to put your little finger between your toes? He says, yes, do that. So after he heard the hadith of the Prophet of Allah, he changed what? His opinion straight away. And Imam Shafi'i, Rahimahullāh, even he's got more better saying than the other Imams. Imam Shafi'i, Muhammad ibn Idris al-Shafi'i, he says, number one, say please.
The sunnah of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam reach as well as escape from every one of us. So whenever I voice my opinion or formulate a principle where something contrary to my views exists on the authority of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then the correct view is what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has said, and it is my view.
Listen, let me translate that in another translation. So not a single person, except that some of the sunnah will not be implemented by him. Not every person, there's nobody that he will have all the sunnah. Some of the people, or that person has to have some of the sunnahs not really applicable or implemented by him because he doesn't know it. So he said, whatever I say and whatever I do, and the messenger did something else and said something else, then the saying of mine and the action of mine is the action and the saying of the Prophet of Allah. So you listen to what the Prophet of Allah and leave what I say. One day Imam Muhammad ibn Shafi'i was sitting to give his class. Somebody came to ask him a fatwa. Imam, I want to ask you regarding this following issue. So Imam Shafi'i said, verily I heard the Prophet ﷺ said the following verdict. So the man, he said, but what do you say? He said, but what do you say? So Imam Shafi'i got so provoked and angry. He said, أَرَأَيْتَنِي خَارِجًا مِنْ كَنِيسَةٍ. Do you see me coming out of the church? أَرَأَيْتَ فِي وَسْطِي زِنَّارٍ. You see in the middle of my waist a belt. You know, the priest, they got a rope and a belt. Do you see me like a priest coming out of a church? I said, the Prophet of Allah said, and you're telling me, what do I say? The same thing happened to Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. When a man came to Abdullah ibn Abbas, he said to him, what do you say regarding al-mut'a? Means tamattu' and hajj. To make umrah first, and then after that you stop the umrah, and then after that you make the halal, then you make the hajj. He said, well, the Prophet of Allah commanded us to do the tamattu'. He said, for verily Abu Bakr and Umar did not. You say that there should not be tamattu'. He said, Abdullah ibn Abbas, I feel that the heavens, the skies are going to rain upon us rocks and stones. I say, Prophet of Allah said, and you say to me, Abu Bakr and Umar? Who is Abu Bakr and Umar compared to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So who is Imam Shafi'i, Imam Malik, and Imam Abu Hanifa, and Imam Ahmad compared to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? How can you make the saying of a scholar or even a companion to oppose the saying of the Prophet, which is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We should be following Allah Azza wa Jal and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imam Shafi'i, he says, if you have seen that I have said something which the Prophet of Allah said the opposite, I'm still alive, then know for sure that I am majnoon, crazy. Look at that. Imam Shafi'i says, again, if you have heard me saying something and the Prophet of Allah said something else and I'm still alive, that means I haven't changed my opinion to the opinion of the Prophet of Allah, that means I want what? فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ عَقْلِي قَدْ ذَهَبْ. You know for a fact that my brains had gone. So Imam Shafi'i, he says to his student Imam Ahmad, look, teacher said to his student, you are more knowledgeable than us regarding the hadith, because Imam Ahmad used to travel from one country to another. So if the hadith comes to you authentic, then tell us whether the hadith is from Kufa or Basra or Sham, those places, so I could really make my verdict, my fatwa, according to that authentic hadith. That's how humble these people are. Imam al-Shafi'i, rahmatullahi alayhi. Coming now to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, you could say he is the one who came after all these Imams, and he had made a collection of hadiths, which is Musnad al-Imam Ahmad. In it, 27,000 hadiths. Largest collection. Imam Malik al-Muwatta, the oldest collection. But Imam Ahmad, that is why he had gathered more of the Sunnah than the other preceding Imams. And that is why he was called Imam al-Sunnah. Imam al-Sunnah, al-Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And that is why Imam Ibn Hazm, Rahimahullāh, when he had gathered the mistakes of the Imams, the one which got less mistakes than the others, Imam what? Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Rahimahullah. He says, لا تقلدني. Don't follow me. Don't imitate me. Don't copy me. Don't blind follow me and blind follow Imam Malik and blind follow Shafi'i or Al-Awza'i or Al-Thawri. These Imams, Thawri and Al-Awza'i, are even greater Imams than Abu Hanifa. But they didn't have students like Abu Hanifa. He said, don't follow with your religion anybody, but follow the Prophet of Allah and his companions. So Imam Ahmad, he's well known that he hates books which are based upon ra'i, kalam, opinions. He wants qala Allah, qala Rasulullah. So these are the sayings of our Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, and Imam al-Zawza'i, Imam al-Thawri, al-Imam, all these Imams, Imam al-Layth, all of these Imams had said the same things. And that is not to be fanatic and not to blind follow. If you are able to know the haqq from the batil, so you're not a layman here. You are a person you could distinguish. This is an ayah and this is the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Imam Malik, rahmatullahi alayhi, when somebody came to him and he said, where can I make Umrah from? He said, from Dhul Hulayfa, from where the Prophet of Allah had made Umrah. Ihram. He said, well, I want to make Ihram from the qabr, from the grave in the masjid. He said, oh, I fear upon you fitna. He said, fitna? What fitna? I'm only adding some miles. You know, between Dhul Hulayfa and the masjid of the Prophet of Allah is only a few miles. He said, what is more fitna greater than you think that you have done something that the Prophet of Allah failed to do it? For verily I've heard of Allah Azza wa Jal saying, فَلْيَحْذَرِ الَّذِينَ يُخَالِفُونَ عَنْ أَمْرِهِ أَن تُصِيبَهُمْ فِتْنَةٌ أَوْ يُصِيبَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. Let have a warning, the ones who are opposing the command of His Messenger, that they will be struck with a fitna. Fitna means a bid'ah, killing, fitna. That, or they will be struck by torment in the hereafter, a severe torment in the hereafter. So any person who had been able to receive the command of the Prophet ﷺ, then he should follow it, even though it will oppose the opinion of a great Imam who he looks up to him and he respects him. But we have to have respect to whom? To the Prophet of Allah's opinions, and he's saying more than we have to anybody else. And when we uphold the Prophet of Allah ﷺ saying this to be the ones on the top, then we are at the same time we are respecting those scholars of ours, because they said, you've seen the scholar, they said, when the hadith is sahih, this is my madhab. And the scholars, they made a mistake because of a number of reasons. And I could tell you of a book of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. Read that book. And that book, it talks about why these scholars, it's a real small book, and that is, it talks about why these scholars had made those wrong opinions. And he gives one reason, second reason, the third reason, fourth reason, fifth reason, sixth reason. Maybe this hadith was authentic to him, but it became unauthentic, or vice versa. Maybe he did not hear about this hadith. Maybe he had two hadiths opposing one another, and so on and so forth. So, coming back to the last, which is, he says here, the title, ترك الأتباع بعض الأقوال من أئمتهم اتباعا للسنة. Some of the examples of those who are scholars who had left their shuyukh sayings because the Sunnah says otherwise. Here gives an example, Muhammad ibn Hassan wa Abu Yusuf, two great students of Imam Abu Hanifa, who had opposed their Shaykh Abu Hanifa in more than a third of his madhab. Why? Because the hadith was not supporting what Abu Hanifa was saying. But they're still calling themselves Hanafi. Let's just talk about Imam Muhammad in his Muwatta. He says, قال Muhammad, أما Abu Hanifa. As for Abu Hanifa, may Allah have mercy upon him, he used to see that istisqa is not authentic, means seeking the rain prayer. Seeking the prayer is not authentic. As for what we say, for verily we say that the Imam should lead the people in 2 rak'ah and make dua, and he put his garment the other way round. Why? Because he had heard the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. So he had opposed his Imam Abu Hanifa regarding istisqa. And also Isam ibn Yusuf al-Balkhi, and he is from the students of Imam Muhammad, and also from the ones who are studying under Al-Imam Yaqub Abu Yusuf Rahimahullāh al-Jamīع. He used to make fatwa which is different from the fatwa of Abu Hanifa a lot, because he does not know the proof. So he used to, because he doesn't know the proof, and if he knows another proof, then he will give the fatwa according to that proof. Rahmatullahi alayhim. He used to raise up his hands in the ruku', and whenever he goes to the ruku' or goes up from the ruku', as it has been narrated in the Sunnah. So his Imam Abu Yusuf Yaqub, and his Imam Muhammad al-Hassan Shaybani, and his Imam Abu Hanifa, 3 Imams, all of them, they don't raise up their hands. He, and that is Isam ibn Yusuf al-Balkhi, Hanafi, but he used to raise up his hands. Why? Because he had seen this ahadith to say that the Prophet of Allah used to raise up his hands when he goes to the ruku' and raise up his hand when he goes up from the ruku'. So that's why Imam Al-Albaani rahmatullahi alayhi says, the cream of the crop of this book, that I want those who are blind followers or fanatic or following the school of thought not to block their ears and close their eyes from the haqq, and that we are not actually belittling their scholars, we are making the scholars to be uppermost. Inshallah, next month we will start talking about some of the shubuhat that those people they bring about to tell us, no, what you're saying is wrong, before we start with the book. So we need another class, and then we start with, inshallah, the book itself, talking about how to make the prayer according to the prayer of the Prophet ﷺ. If you have any questions regarding what we have heard, or something you need to know even about the prayer itself, we don't mind, inshallah. Keep in mind that make your question a question, not a lecture. Any questions from the brothers? Please.
Assalamu alaikum. The question is, there are people who say that a muhaddith is a pharmacist and a faqih is a doctor. What would you say about that statement, Shaykh?
Somebody says, as scholars, that the muhaddith is a pharmacist and the faqih is
A doctor.
a doctor. MashaAllah. That example somehow right from one angle and wrong from a lot of angles. For verily, the example that is being given to the faqih and the muhaddith is the other way round, which makes the muhaddith is the one who is in control of what the faqih says, whereas yours is the other way around. But the doctor, do you think that he doesn't know the right medicine? He does. But the faqih, he doesn't. He depends upon medicine he thinks it is correct, and he doesn't know that that medicine is a killer medicine. But the right example is as follows. That is, the faqih is like a shoe seller, and the muhaddith is a shoe maker. What is the difference? The shoe seller, you come to him. Can you please give me a size 40? Yeah, I've got 46. I haven't got that. Whereas a shoemaker, any size you like. 49, I give you. 52, I'll give you. Do you understand that? That's the difference. Every muhaddith is a faqih, but not every faqih is muhaddith. No muhaddith except he's to be what? Faqih. Imam Ahmad, he was known to be a muhaddith, but he is what? Faqih. He was known to be muhaddith, but he was a faqih. And the Imam Malik, muhaddith, but he was a faqih. But not every faqih is a muhaddith. Imam Abu Hanifa, he was a faqih. No way he's a muhaddith, rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam Abu Hanifa, because his hadith knowledge at this time was not traveling around. And that is why he had narrated about 14 hadiths, and he was one of the narrators, like in the narration. And all of those 14 hadiths are to be unauthentic. Why? Because Abu Hanifa is one of the narrators. And that is why we have Yahya ibn Ma'in, Rahimahullāh, the scholar of Muhaddith Hadith, Hanafi, or others, when they talk about, for example, Abu Hatim, or others, when they talk about this hadith to be da'if, and Abu Hanifa there, and he says, and there is in the narration somebody who is not fully right, is not correct, and he doesn't want to mention his name because of his great name, but it's Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayhi. If you have list how many muhaddiths, like Imam al-Bukhari, the Amir al-Mu'mineen, ending up with the Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and in the middle, all of these great scholars of hadith, they will say Imam Abu Hanifa, he was daif, even he was wari' imam, but his memory in terms of hadith, it was not 100%. Do you understand me? The muhaddith is to be tested and grilled. If he says the hadith somehow in one circle, different from what he said in a different circle or a different scholar, then that is something, a black spot in his biography. It would make him not memory sound. We have to have another narration from another sets of roots in order to support that. So rahmatullahi alayhi, Abu Hanifa was not a muhaddith. So every muhaddith is a scholar of fiqh, but not every faqih is muhaddith. Now,
From the sisters, can you use toiletries and perfumes that contain alcohol in them? And can we pray with this on?
can we use perfume that has got alcohol in them? Is that the question?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, the question, first of all, has got different sorts of things we have to deal with them. Alcohol in itself is pure. Do you understand me? It is not impure. Its impurity is when you drink it. So alcohol is what? Pure. It's not like the impurity of the urine, the impurity of the excrement. No, it is pure. But even though it is pure, the Prophet ﷺ prohibited even that alcohol which is pure to be used for selling, for buying, for extracting. So if you have carried grapes to a factory which you're going to turn that grapes into wine, you are under the curse. لَعَنَ اللَّهُ مَعَ الْخَمْرِ عَشْرًا. Allah had cursed 10 people regarding the khamr. All of it because of what? The drink. حَامِلُهَا وَبَائِرُهَا وَمُشْتَرِيهَا. And that is the one who carries it, the one who's being carried to, the one who's being extracting it, the one who's being extracted to, the one who's buying it, the one who's selling it, the one who's planting it. All of those because the one who's drinking it. So even it's for external use, and this is one of the two opinions, even if it's external use, if the amount of the alcohol in that bottle, which you are using for perfume, okay, can get you drunk, then that perfume, even though you're not going to drink it, it's haram to be next to you. Do you understand me? Haram to be next to you. So, alcohol in cologne, you don't have to shave the cologne. Alcohol in whatever. There is lots of substitute there. Now what about, we have detergents, cleaning stuff in the house and all of that. Now let me tell you, alcohol is not cheap, it's expensive. Okay. The alcohol is called ethanol. This is the scientific name of it. When you make of that, there is ethanol and there is methanol. Methanol is poisonous. Okay. So what you have in your cleaning stuff is not the ethanol. You have the what? The methanol. No problem, use the methanol. You could have poison, no problem. Don't drink it to poison yourself. You're allowed to drink poison for cure. You know that? Isn't it true that when somebody is stung by a scorpion or a snake bite, they give him antidote? What is that? Poison itself. Do you know that? Yes. They give him small portion of that poison in order to build immunity. Do you understand that? So poison in that sense is halal. I'll tell you what. More than that, drugs. Drugs is not alcohol. When you are going to hospital for operation, what do they give you to put you down? Morphine. Proper drugs. Proper. And if you are, for example, in an accident, what do they give you in that injection? They talk to each other. We give him 10. Well, maybe it's not 10 enough. Give him 12. Give him 14. I'm not joking. When I had an accident, and they were taking me, and I was just waking up, and I had an accident, and I was in the ambulance, and they're talking to me. Are you in pain? And he said to the guy, I just gave him 8. I said to him, increase the shot. I got used to it. And he was laughing his head off. Using the morphine is halal. It's not alcohol. Alcohol is different. Drugs is different. If you use it for the right halal way, it's halal. And I give you something that maybe your wife does it, and you eat it. Nutmeg. Have you heard about that one? Put your finger on it. Nutmeg. Wallah, nutmeg, if you eat a lot of it, is drugs.
The women like it.
The women love it. They put it in the cakes. Nutmeg. Halal. As long as they put it not to drug their husbands, to make the sweet cakes nice and taste. Okay? Nutmeg. It's well known. Nutmeg. Get it? Yes? It's well known. Huh? Alhamdulillah. You know it. We should let Sham use it a lot. No problem. But alcohol, little bit, too much of it is haram. But if it's been mixed with something to the extent that it is not gives you drunk, then there's no problem to drink that thing. So if you have a medicine, or you have anything which is alcohol in it, it does not make you drunk if you drink a lot of it, then that substance is halal but haram for you to make it. Why? Because if you want to make it and mix alcohol, that means you've got alcohol. Alcohol is haram to be next to you. So as an answer for this question, if your perfume is got alcohol, methanol, not ethanol, not methanol, then if it's too much, gets you drunk, avoid it, is haram. If it is not, it's little bits and does not make you drunk. I'm not saying to you go and drink perfume to try it, but you have to know the percentage. Like
the next question is the same one. Where did you get the 0.05 percentage from?
Well, if you go to Shaykh Google and put there, Shaykh Google is a lot, and it could be naughty Google as well. Shaykh Al-Naughty, you know, the way they use it. You could put there, and he will tell you that if it is less than, I'm going to repeat again, 0.05, not 0.5. That makes you drunk. This is 5, okay, percent of the percent. So it is, do you understand me? 5% of the percentage, 0.05%. That is called alcohol free, and that is well known in this country, and it does not get you drunk. Now,
how do you know if your salah is being accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
How do I know is my salah accepted by Allah Azza wa Jal? There are signs. But you're not really after these signs. You're just to do the prayer, and you leave Allah to Azza wa Jal, not to investigate, was my prayer accepted or was not. Just pray the prayer. But there are signs. If this person follows his good action by good action, that means it's been accepted. This person, if he is praying his prayer not out of rituals, you know what's rituals? He starts the prayer and he ends the prayer. If you ask him, what did the Imam recite in the first rak'ah? Huh? He doesn't know. Even if he said, Qul huwa Allahu ahad, he's in a different world. He was counting how much profit he was making in his taxi. Busy. And he's planning to where he's going to be going after the prayer to go and get the best. Busy. Sahwa. True. His mind is not in the prayer, his mind is in dunya. So he knows, Salamu alaikum, oh, he finished the prayer. Some of them, they pray on their own. Wallahi, they keep praying. How many rak'ah did I pray? I think I'm wrong. So you add another rak'ah. And then, am I wrong? Then I have to make sujood sahu. Then he forgets to make sujood sahu. So he makes sujood sahu for forgetting sujood sahu. And his prayer is like that. He's lost, completely lost. That's his prayer is not accepted. Now,
can you make dua in English in sujood during salah?
You cannot make dua or anything in English in the salah unless you don't know anything about Arabic. If you don't know anything in Arabic, then you know it. And by the way, in the sujood, stick to the du'as of the Prophet. If you don't know it, then you say it in your own Chinese language. Now,
please, can you confirm how to pray witr prayer
How?
To pray witr.
Which prayer? To pray witr prayer. To pray the witr prayer, witr means the odd number. And witr is something to end up with rak'ah. You could pray it 11, 9, 7, 5, 3, and also 1 on its own. From the action of the Prophet of Allah, he never prayed less than 7. But from the saying of the Prophet of Allah, he said, وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُوتِرْ بِوَاحِدٍ. If he wishes, he could pray one witr. So if you are tired, just pray one rak'ah and sleep. That's the witr. The best time for the witr is to do it at the end of the night before Fajr, before the appearance of the Fajr. But you could do it like Abu Bakr at the beginning of the night, radiallahu anhu. The witr is very emphasized, but it's not obligatory, but it's very emphasized. Don't leave it. Now,
I sometimes forget which rak'ah I am in my salah. What should I do?
okay, regarding sujood al-sahw. Sujood al-sahw is 2 sajda. In these 2 sajda, you make the same dua as the sujood, subhana rabbi al-a'la. These 2 sajda are prayed before taslim or after taslim. But if you did it after taslim, after salutation, you make another salutation, not tashahhud, another salutation. Now, if you didn't know which position should I make them before or after, it doesn't matter. You make them before or after. But if you want to follow the sunnah, then as follows. There are only 2 cases where sujood al-sahw is to be prayed before salutation. And the rest is always after salutation. And when you make 2 sajda after salutation, you have to make another salutation. What are these 2 cases? Case number 1, if you forgot the middle tashahhud, which is the first tashahhud, and you stood up completely, you may not go down. You continue the prayer, and then after that, you make 2 sajda before salutation. Second case, which is the case that the sister had mentioned, she forgot how many rak'ah she had prayed. And if she forgot how many rak'ah she had prayed, then she should investigate. Let's say she is now in the 3rd rak'ah, but she thinks that she's in the 4th rak'ah. So she's in doubt. Did she pray her 3rd or not? So she's saying, did I pray my 3rd? Did I pray my 3rd? Did I pray my... I can't determine. Okay, I will build now upon what I'm sure of. I prayed what? 2, because she 100% prayed 2, but she's not sure she prayed the 3rd, the sister. Then she built upon the least, and that is 2. So she makes this rak'ah 3rd, and then makes another 4th rak'ah, 4 rak'ah prayer. Then before salutation, she makes what? 2 sajda of sahw. Apart from that, then you make your sujood sahw after salutation. So listen, you gave me a question, I'm going to give you some questions. A person, he had prayed his asr, instead of 4 rak'ah, he made them 5 rak'ah. Then after he had sat down, he realized in his tashahhud, this is his 5th rak'ah. Where does he make his tashahhud? Before or after salutation? After salutation. It's not one of the 2 cases. Right. A person, he had prayed his asr 2 rak'ah. And he made tashahhud, salutation. Then somebody told him, oh, by the way, you prayed 2. What should he do? Another 2. He prays another 2 and sujood sahw where? After salutation. Okay, last question. Person, he was in his prayer. He was in his 4th rak'ah. He's in doubt of his 3rd rak'ah. He's investigating. Did I pray 3 or did I pray 2? The first rak'ah I prayed Fatiha, Qul huwallahu ahad. Second rak'ah, Fatiha, Qul a'udhu falaq. Oh yes, I made tashahhud and I prayed my 3rd. I am 100% in my 4th rak'ah. I'm sure now. What should I do? Put your finger up if you know. Naam, fadal.
You go from least.
Huh? No, you're not the least. You're sure, really least. I know now. I know I prayed 3. So I'm praying my 4th now. What should I do?
Did you start from 1st?
Huh?
Did you go to 4th?
No, I'm in the 4th. As I said to you, I'm in the 4th, doubting did I pray my 3rd or not. After investigation, I know that this is my fourth. What do I do? You should say that I should make my fourth and finish it. Go on. Who's that? Yes?
You complete the last one, the fourth and the last one, and after you do the sujood.
Say what?
You complete the prayer, which is the fourth one, which you are
Yes.
sure.
And then
after you do the sujood.
Sujood, what, sahu?
Yeah.
You two sajda sahu. Where do I make it? After or before? Before or after? Come on, guys, talk. Before or after? I want to know.
After.
Before or after? Who says before? Put your finger up. Who says after? Who says after?
After.
It is after. It is not like the first case. That case, you are in doubt, you did not arrive to a conclusion. This one, you have arrived to a conclusion. Even you're right, but because if you contemplated that, then you have to do it after. Sujood sahu. Ala kulli sahwin sajdatan. Last and finally, there is one sahu where there is no two sajda. There is one sahu where there is no. Yes? The recitation of the Quran, there is no sujood sahu because it's nothing to do with it. Somebody will tell you what it is. There is no sujood. But I'm talking about standing up and doing this. What is sujood sahu? There is no sujood sahu. I'll tell you. If the person, he left the first tashahhud and he was not completely up, he remembered. He should do what now? Sit down. Make tashahhud and there is no sujood sahu. Even though he stood up. But he did not complete his standing up. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Shaykh,
No.
sorry, I didn't same subject, inshallah. I just want to add, as a
Assalamu alaikum, guys. Yallah.
as a imam, I made a mistake. I was, for example, leading Isha. This is in a scenario. I'm asking you as a question. I stood up. I did 4 rak'ahs, but I stood up 5th rak'ah. Now, with the ma'mumeen, some of them, they stick with me as the imam because they know the hadith which says that follow the imam. But others, they stay behind. And they say subhanallah or Allahu Akbar or so on and so forth. So what is your opinion in that situation in terms of the ma'mumeen? And I think I'm right. My opinion, I'm thinking I'm doing 4th rak'ah instead of 5th.
The imam, he's doing 5th rak'ah, and the imam, he believes in his 4th rak'ah. He said the people behind him, some of them stood behind him because they believe they should follow the imam. But I should add to that, maybe as well, they are in a different world, they think this is the 4th rak'ah. Is it true? A different world.
Maybe some of them they know already.
Hang on.
Sorry.
So it's not all of them they are following the sunnah. So if they're following the sunnah, they should say subhanallah as well. So in this scenario, first of all, we say to the imam, subhanallah. That means to remind him he's what? Making a mistake. Before we stand up. But he's still standing up because he believes he's in the what? In the 4th. And in this case, we follow him. We said subhanallah. We don't say to him, you are in the 5th rak'ah. No, we don't say that. We say to him, subhanallah. Subhanallah. He doesn't want to sit down. We stand up with him and we make the 5th rak'ah. Nobody's to sit down and say, I'm going to leave the imam on his own and wait for him until he finishes his 5th rak'ah. No, akhi. I have to stand up with him. إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامِ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. It happened at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, where the companions, they were in the Asr, and the Prophet of Allah, he prayed the Asr 5th rak'ah. So, companions, they were with the Prophet of Allah ﷺ. They did not do anything, they followed him. Now, you would have said, like some of the scholars they said, you say they are in the time of Tashri'ah. Maybe this 4 rak'ah became what? 5 rak'ah. Yeah, but it's true. But the Prophet of Allah, he said, إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامِ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. Yes, true. But we follow him, it's not because we think that there is a new rak'ah being added. We follow him because he's the imam. إِنَّمَا جُعِلَ الْإِمَامِ لِيُؤْتَمَّ بِهِ. Even if he's wrong. You know when he stands up for the first tashahhud, he does not make it. What do? Do you do the tashahhud or you follow the imam? Of course you follow the imam. You don't say, Imam, you go ahead, I'm going to make my tashahhud. No, you have to follow the imam, even though you know that he's what? He's wrong. You said to him, subhanallah, but he's fully standing up, he can't go down. So you follow him. and then we make the sujood al-sahw. So we say to those people who sat down, did not follow the imam, you're wrong. You have to follow the imam. And as I said, the imam, he could be thinking that he's in the 4th rak'ah. But if the people, all of them, said to him, subhanallah, he should know. And those people who said that he followed them because they think that it's a sunnah, but he should say subhanallah as well. Because as I said, if he didn't say subhanallah, that means they are in doubt whether they are in the 4th or the 5th. They are in a different world. طيب سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا.